hot diggity dog. This place is magnificent.
Ladies and gentlemen, I'm having a very good week at the minute. Not only have I had Doctor Who come back with David Tennant, I've had a Payday 3 update come out that's actually something that makes the game really enjoyable again. I've got to be completely honest with you, this is the update the game sorely needed. When Update 1 came out last month, I kind of looked at it as the vaccination you get before you go on a holiday to some exotic country. It's what you need to get before you go to the fun part, but it's not the fun part. This is the fun part, and I have to say right from the bat, thank you very much to Starbreeze for giving me early access to this build. It means I can talk in a bit more detail about the update and share my actual thoughts on it as it's coming out for all of you to play, so you can get an idea of what's to come if you haven't already seen the patch notes or just want to know my thoughts in general. That also means this footage was captured before the update went live publicly, so as always, if you see any problems, early build, usual gist I need to give you. And the only other thing I need to mention before we get into the gist of it is at 7 PM UK time tonight, I'll be doing a live stream playing the update, hopefully on Twitch and YouTube, at the very least Twitch. I'm going to try and get multi-streaming working again, but I will be joined by Ian Russell, the voice of Locke. He'll be chatting about coming back to Payday 3 and hopefully trying to play some matches with me, so that will be quite fun. But either way, let's get into this. Let's talk about everything you need to know from Update 2. And to lead off, I've got to talk about the two heists, Cook-Off and Turbid Station. I'm going to get Turbid Station out of the way first, purely because I've had less experience with that one. I want to offer my overall thoughts on the things I've picked up from playing it, but honestly, I want to get the hang of stealthing that on stream with you guys. I think that'll be really, really fun. But there are a lot of very key similarities between the Payday 2 version, Murky Station, and Payday 3, but this heist in particular feels like the one that's had the biggest overhaul. With it being Payday 3's first stealth-only heist, things have had to change to accommodate it. For one thing, the movement system is very, very different. You're getting around along the top of the train cars if you want to. The actual map spaces feel a lot wider. Some of the rooms underground feel wider. Some of the corridors and spaces that you're working through feel like they've got a bit more space for movement than Payday 2. Actually, really, in hindsight, Payday 2's environments could feel quite claustrophobic, and I don't really feel that Payday 3's have that same vibe anymore, at least personally. I mean, in both games, I had the FOV slider cranked up to maximum, but in Payday 3, I really feel like I've got tons more space than I did in Payday 2. But I will say, the heist itself is definitely more challenging than Payday 2. They've really taken the stealth angles of Payday 3 and what makes the stealth gameplay unique and pushed it as far as they can in this heist, and I think it's worked very, very effectively. You've got a lot of things that are quite similar, so looking around for example, keycards, SSDs, to get into particular train cars to get the things you want. This time you're stealing satellite parts, and if you want extra loot, there's solar panels, things like that, so there's still a good chunk of optional loot you can get, and if you want to get the new Infamy Point payout for getting all the bags, you'll want to get it all from the heist, but a lot of it is quite similar. Some things have changed though. The most interesting thing for me was the new computer objective. When I was trying to get into one of the train car doors, which I'll try and put some footage on screen for you now, you actually need to hack a computer underground in the lower section that then opens the door for a brief amount of time where you have to get upstairs and get in the train car and get the loot. But an interesting twist on things, and I think again it's trying to make the most of this whole stealth layout for Payday 3. And I think it works really, really well. I will give a special mention to the keycard stand though in Payday 3 because, much like in Payday 2, when you go near the keycard stand, there's a radio playing some music. And every time I was playing, I'm not sure if the song variates in different playthroughs because I haven't played enough of it as I've said, but all I heard was On the Road. So that was a really nice touch as someone who loves that song in Payday 2, so that was quite nice to hear. But yeah, I think that the actual stealth systems work really, really well. The cameras themselves now, interestingly, are moving drone cameras. Not like motion detectors where it will only detect things moving, actual cameras that will just detect anything suspicious in a certain radius. So you'll see the cone of vision, it'll move around different areas of the train yard, and if, say, you're stood in there for too long, or a body is in there, or an alerted guard, the cameras will see, and the alarm will go off. You can actually get a pre-planning favour, however, that will extend the amount of time after you're detected. It's obviously not the most ideal thing you want to be avoiding altogether being spotted, but I thought I'd mention that in case you're interested in picking up the favours to make life a bit easier for you. But yeah, the cameras work, I think, really, really well. The drones annoyed me in Payday 2 because it was very much just they would suddenly pop up and see you and then suddenly move away, and sometimes it was hard to respond to it. At least I struggled sometimes. Here, it's challenging, but easier to work around, I feel like, because you see the cone of vision coming, you know what it's going to see, when it's going to see it, and you can adapt a little bit easier. So I think that's definitely more forgiving, but also very, very enjoyable. And also, it's worth mentioning when you're hacking into the train cars themselves, rather than just doing a lockpick thing that opens the train door, you have to leave it hacking for a brief period of time and then confirm it once the hack is done. But bear in mind, when you're doing the hack, guards can see it, will walk over and be alerted by it, so try and do it when no guards are around. That's the stuff I've picked up so far from playing Turbid Station, but all in all, I will say, I really, really like this heist. I think it's a very, very strong improvement on Murky Station. It takes what makes Payday 3 stealth so interesting and incorporates it very well, and that's why it's important to remember what they've been saying so far, that, you know, these heists won't feel the same as Payday 2, and despite what some people are saying, they weren't copy and pasted. You can't port stuff from Diesel to Unreal in that same sense. They've had to build this from the ground back up again. and build it within Payday 3's architecture, so it still takes a notable amount of effort. And honestly, I think they've done it really, really well. But I've got to move on next to Cook-Off and give my thoughts on that, because let me tell you, this is the best execution they could have possibly done in porting Cook-Off over. I've got to be honest, they have made the heist so much better. It's not even like too much has changed in the actual mechanics of the heist, but this one I've played a lot, got a lot of loot, and that's partially why I haven't done as much of Turbid Station, because I was enjoying Cook-Off so much that I just kept playing it. I'm going to be completely honest with you, and it's what I'm really loving about this. So, in Cook-Off, the things I want to pick up, I've got a list in front of me in case it wasn't completely obvious. First off, I really, really like how Shade tells you about the ingredients this time. She is much quicker to correct her mistakes than Bane was. So rather than Bane saying, it's this ingredient, and you having to wait for him to confirm or deny it, if Shade makes a mistake, in the middle of saying it, she'll go, hold on, wait. She won't tell you what the correction is immediately, but she will tell you that she's wrong, then you wait for it. If she doesn't sound like she's about to correct herself, she's probably got the ingredient right. So it's a bit more reliable of a system, and I think it works much, much better in that regard. I think Payday 3 is more interesting in the way that the combat flows, and I think having the objective of cooking the meth be a little bit less waiting around makes the combat more enjoyable, because you can focus more on that and not on the cooking, which might sound strange for a cooking meth heist, but I think hopefully it comes across that I think it's a better move. On top of that, when you get the ingredient drop-off, she's still calling a flare, and Bio will drop off extra ingredients, but he'll drop off 4 sets of ingredients as opposed to 3 in Payday 2. The only catch is you need to have picked up every single ingredient in the map before you can call the flare. In Payday 2, you could still have 1 set of ingredients lying around before the objective would trigger to call in more ingredients. Here, you've got to pick up everything before it will be called in. So if you've got a squad of 4 people, get them to pick up all the ingredients, run out of them as fast as possible, then you can call for the flare a bit quicker. But bear in mind, you can only get a maximum of 19 bags in Cook-Off in Payday 3, which, contrary to some of the complaints I've seen, I think it's a perfect run. It means you get about an hour in the heist, and I think that's perfect personally. But you'll get 7 bags of loot just from picking up ingredients around the map, and then 3 lots of chopper call-ins with 4 sets of ingredients. So that's the full run if you want to get every single bag secured. And I think it really, really works. The new map movement and the verticality of the scaffolding is really, really strong, and you can now cook the meth in 3 different locations: in the top floor, the ground floor, and also in the basement. It's set up in that way so you can cook in any of them. I've only had spawns so far on the top floor and the ground floor, but I will say my favourite so far has been the top. The top floor, despite having 2 ways to access it now like the ground floor, I think flows the best. I really, really like the way the cops can come up the stairs or along the scaffolding, but the map has got enough space and movement in it that you can bounce around really easily and do the cooking, and I think it's worked perfectly. The whole map design, it feels like they've taken what made Cook-Off so good in Payday 2 and just made it better by adding more things in. The extra scaffolding, the extra location in the basement for the meth lab, the garage that joins it to the outside of the map. Really, 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 really strong stuff. I really like it. Extra things to note for gameplay mechanics: the van will still come and go for you to secure meth bags, so you have to wait for it, but I think it's a little bit faster coming and going now, which is good. I mean, you're not going to be playing forever anyway, so you want that quick van callback to secure the loot, and I think it does that very, very well. Don't let the cops turn the power off, because unlike in Payday 2, turning the power off doesn't just kill the lights, it also stops you from cooking. If the power is turned off, you've got to get it back on, because the cooking will pause until you do so. The idea with the meth cooking is that once you put all 3 ingredients in, the meth will pop up in front of you as a pile of white meth. If you leave it for a little bit, you'll hear a little crackling noise and it'll go blue. That's when you lose it for the maximum value. I don't actually know what colour it goes if you leave it too long, because I didn't want to ruin any of my take. I'm going to guess it'd go black, but the idea is there's a brief window where it's going to be blue. If you bag it then, you get increased value. There's enough chance to grab it if you hear it and you're near enough to it, so don't worry too much about rushing. You should be able to manage it fine. I've been tased in the middle of it being blue and still been able to bag it. But I will say that when the white meth is just chilling there, I had the power go off at one point and I thought, I better stay near it in case it goes blue while I'm doing the power. It won't. It will not go blue till you turn the power back on, so you're good to go and do it. So make sure the power is always on at all times. Very important to note that. And the only other thing to mention is that when you're looking for ingredients around the map, they can be outside the house. I had a can of hydrogen chloride outside the main stairs entrance to the house. So just look, there's extra spawns basically now for where things can appear. But all in all, I really, really like Cook-Off. I think this was a flawless execution. I literally have 0 complaints for this heist. I really do. I think it's absolutely flawlessly done. And I honestly, in a lot of ways, just wish this had been in the game at launch. A lot of my vibe on this update, and I'll talk about it more in a little bit, is that the stuff in this update has made Payday 3 much more enjoyable, and I just wish it had been there from the start. I think if you'd left Payday 3 a few more months to cook and add some of this stuff in, you would have had a much stronger launch, in my personal opinion. But regardless, as I always say, better late than never. Those are the 2 heists that are the most important thing. Let's talk now about everything else in the update. And first off, first-person animations, you would be amazed at how much better it makes the game look. I mean, you've no doubt seen it in some of the gameplay already for the heists, but just being able to see your character make an effort to actually pick up bags, or to pick up ingredients, to scan keycards, to press buttons, it looked cool in execution in the dev update, but actually playing it through and seeing your character do these things, they're not flawless. I mean, sometimes animations will play, like if you're opening a vent from the side, you'll be kind of unscrewing thin air, which, you know, it is what it is. I'm not expecting flawless perfection here. The point is, doing the animations makes you feel so much more immersed into the game, and I'm not trying to, you know, overstate it and for some dramatic effect. I genuinely do think so. When the game first came out, I had a few very small criticisms, and one of them was that actually bagging loot felt very underwhelming, because it was one of the only things that hadn't changed in Payday 2. You know, in Crime Boss, they even mentioned this in their dev streams, you pick up bits of loot and fill a bag. You don't need it to be the same for Payday 3, just literally looking at the loot, opening a bag, and basically swallowing the loot into the bag is more than enough for me, and I'm glad that that is there now. That is very, very important. And very well executed. I really thoroughly enjoy it. But yeah, there's a whole range of animations in here that I really, really like. Inspecting weapons, as they said in one of the earlier streams, is very generic right now for all guns. It's just kind of a pick up, oh, look at this gun, and then put it back down. They will try and add more unique animations to different guns as time goes by, but the fact that you can inspect your weapon is good. People with very hyperactive brains like me who always need something to do when they're stood around, I appreciate it greatly, so thank you very much for that, Starbreeze. Next up, though, is the Transporter skill line. Now, unfortunately, I haven't played with a full skill line, and there is a reason for this. In the early access build, you don't get to keep your progress. You are basically starting from scratch. So I had to try and level up and unlock the skills. I didn't get the whole way. As I mentioned earlier, there was a new Doctor Who episode this weekend. And if you don't know, I've got a Doctor Who podcast. My co-host lives in Australia and came over to the UK. We spent the whole weekend together doing content for that. I think you can understand that was why that had to take precedence. So while I've played a good bit of this update, I didn't play enough to get the full skill tree unlocked. But I will say, I did not like the sound of the first skill where picking up bags and then dropping them would give you and remove rush. But it works much better in execution. This skill line is going to change the game for loud gameplay, in my opinion. I know I heard people arguing, saying it was either going to be pointless or it's going to be a new meta. I think we're looking at definitely a new meta with Transporter. I am very intrigued to see this in the live game. Very soon I'll start making my builds. I could start doing it a bit early, but I want to wait for a lot of skill points. But I've got some intriguing builds I'm going to start cooking up, and having Transporter involved will make it very, very interesting. I think this skill tree is well worth investing your time into. Make sure you're researching it and getting all the skills unlocked. And remember, in case you've forgotten since launch, you need to have the first skill equipped once you've unlocked it to start earning progress towards the rest of the skills. So as soon as you've researched the first skill in Transporter, equip the basic and keep playing until you've unlocked the rest of the skills, and then you can fiddle around with your builds after that. Beyond that, there's a couple of other things to talk about. For one thing, there is the new mask, which is the Under Wraps mask. You can see it on screen. Looks fine. I like it, and I like that the bandages flap around in the breeze. That's the power of Unreal Engine, baby. But also the Compact 7 Lycan preset weapon. I used that a little bit. Both of these are quite affordable, which I really appreciated. Again, being on a new build of the game. But I really like the Lycan weapon variant. It's just another one of these presets that give you a predetermined set of stats for the gun that you can use before you've actually unlocked the weapon, provided you haven't already unlocked it, which I feel like a lot of people will have done by this point. But the look of it's really cool. Bit of a werewolf design. Feels like maybe something they were trying to put out for Halloween and maybe came out a bit too late amongst, you know, all the other problems going on, but whatever. It's still a cool design, and I do greatly appreciate it. But finally, the last big thing is the progression and challenges overhauls that I want to give my actual thoughts on now I've played the game. Now, what they've done is they've given you infamy points now for completing heists, for securing all bags, and completing in stealth. There are 3 different things that will give you points. My personal opinion, after having played for a bit, is I don't think they give you quite enough. That's my only real critique of it, and I know it's like, oh, you want to have your cake and eat it too, but coming from someone who's playing the game fresh out the bag and seeing myself level up, I was seeing all these challenges get completed, and really, in comparison between getting, say, 100 infamy points for completing a challenge and getting 10 infamy points for completing certain heists, because it varies based on the heist and the length of it, it will give you more or less infamy points. I think it's probably worked out on averages. They say they were monitoring how long people take to complete heists. My best guess is they're giving infamy points based on the average time to complete a heist. Just my own opinion. I'm not sure if they've officially confirmed that, so don't quote me on it. But I do think that maybe they could do with tweaking the stats and increasing them. I think that having these infamy point rewards for completing heists is good, but I think my only issue is it still slightly leans too much into the you need to play these heists 500 times kind of vibe. So I think that just tweaking them a little bit would be good. But I will say, I think the execution of it overall is very strong. Getting different infamy points, as I've said, for different heist lengths is very good, so it's not a flat rate, but also getting infamy points for collecting all the bags is very, very good. The only improvement I'd add there, okay, one more critique I would say, is to split things up. So for example, if you get 20 infamy points for securing all bags in, for example, Cook-Off, why don't you get 10 for securing half of them? Do you see what I mean? I think there's a little bit too much of a defined split between just completing the heist and getting all the bags, and it's not really indicative right now as to what you actually get for securing some and not all of the bags. I think there needs to be a bit more of an encouragement there to finish whenever you want and get maybe half the rewards, because right now it's either you do it all or you do the minimum. Overall, like I said, the base of it I really like, and on top of that, the stealth completion infinity point bonus I think is also good. I've argued this before, but often stealth can take longer than loud because you're trying to stay under the radar, you're slower, you're more tactical, you're careful around your enemies, whereas loud you just go in guns blazing and get the job done. So the fact that you get more infinity points for doing it in stealth tries to basically balance for the longer amount of time it'll take in stealth, which I do really appreciate. I think that's worked overall, by my little couple of critiques, very, very well. I think just giving you a little bit more flexibility on bag loot and maybe upping the infinity point rewards a little bit would make that system perfect. Finally, last thing to mention is recommended challenges. Not much to say here because the challenge system itself hasn't had much love in terms of sorting and filtering yet. That'll come down the line, no doubt. But on the main menu now, you'll get given 3 recommended challenges based on things you've done recently, but you'll also get them to pop up in particular heists. So when you go onto the heist selection screen and pick a heist, it'll give you 3 recommended challenges for that heist. So it's just something for you to bear in mind. If you go, I want to play Golden Shark, what's the next challenge I could do? You'll see, complete it in stealth on very hard one more time and go, okay, let's do that. And it will give you a bit more agency in your completion of actual challenges. It's something to make it a bit better, and I think it really works well in that execution. I just want to see more things be added beyond that in the actual challenges system, sorting, filtering, and just hopefully some more challenges that make things a bit more accessible. I think would be very, very nice, because I think a few too many of them, as I've said, are play this heist 200 times, and not everyone wants to do that. I certainly don't, so that's just my opinion. But all in all, my overall thoughts on this update is that it is very, very strong. There are a whole bunch of patch notes, fixes beyond that. I have been sent the patch notes early by Starbreeze, and I have looked over them. I will leave a link to the patch notes in the description of this video, so you can go and read them if you want. But they've fixed a whole heap of bugs. About 200 plus bugs have been fixed once again here, just like the last update. So they really are trying to get Payday 3 back off the ground again and get it to actually have some love. Update 2 is definitely the best thing to happen to Payday 3 since launch. I know that's not saying much considering the last couple of months Payday 3 has had. As I've already said, I just wish a lot of this stuff, like the first person animations, the infinity point heist upon completion, recommended challenges, I wish these things had been in the game at launch. I think it would have made it a much stronger takeoff, but we've got them now, and all we got to do is hope that that brings people back in. But for the time being, I will say this update has very, very much improved my thoughts on this game. I think there's enough in the game now to actually get me a bit more invested again, which is what I've been looking for, so I'm very, very happy about that. So thank you all very much for watching this video. I hope you enjoyed my overall thoughts on Payday 3's second update. If you have enjoyed them, please leave a like on this video. It really does help and shows me you enjoyed this content. And if you're new around here and you want more Payday 3 news, opinions, and everything in between, then click that subscribe button. I'll always update you on any news I hear about Payday 2, Payday 3, whatever it may be, PC and consoles. I'll be here to let you know. But apart from that, thank you all very much for watching. I'll see you all tonight at 7 PM GMT, that's UK time, for my Payday 3 Update 2 stream with Locke himself, Ian Russell. Until then, thank you all for watching, see you all soon, take it easy, and I'll see you in the next video.